Tamagotchi, the original virtual reality pet.
It's Mark versus the Space Aliens for your NES.
Brand new action show.
This Saturday morning on Fox Kids.
Now baby, I'm the Ripper, your baby daddy's worst nightmare. Catch me, I declare, I'll be right there.
I got an email. Hi Tamago, I found this really cool website that you can download a bunch of old games on it, and it has a bunch of old Simpsons games that I reckon you should play. www.myabandonware.com. Anyways, love your videos, Lila. Thanks, Lila. It's supposed to be a business email, but the website is as described. It has a bunch of old retro games, a lot of Simpsons games on there too. I played some of them and I mean, they weren't great. For the most part, they were just licensed games from the 90s trying to cash in on the success of the show. You know, of course there'd be an arcade game, why not? And I don't know what baffles me more, the fact they made a Simpsons Tetris or that it got a sequel. Don't let my poor technique distract you, okay? Look, that is supposed to be bought. This game came out after Hit and Run. It's no wonder a lot of these games are on this website. I'd abandon them too. But that actually got me thinking, like, abandonware, what is, like, how do you abandon software? Do you just put it on a USB stick, drive into the woods and like leave it there? Especially because we're talking about stuff that's been published, right? That's the only way anyone else could even know it exists. Like, sure, if you made something and never put it out there, then I guess you could abandon it. But how do you abandon something that isn't just yours anymore? Something that, because you distributed it in one way or another, other people, potentially lots of other people, also now have. So abandonware is described in two parts. The first is that it's software that's no longer supported by the original developer or publisher or whoever is responsible for supporting it. So if you're using a really old software, run into trouble and need help from customer service, that's tough. The second part, and it's probably more relevant here, is that abandonware is software that is no longer distributed by the original publisher or any rights holder. I think people generally wouldn't mind if a really old game no longer had any publisher support. You know, most of this stuff is from the 80s and 90s. You're probably going into it understanding that Nintendo is not going to help you fix your copy of Mario Teaches Typing.
Thank you for choosing Mario Teaches It Typing. Mario Teaches It. Thank you for choosing Mario.
And so what I believe really makes a piece of software abandoned is when it doesn't have a home anymore, no official place to get it. And that's where a website like myabandonware.com comes in. They give people a way to still access these games when you can no longer get them through official means, either because the original publisher doesn't sell them anymore, or because the original publisher doesn't exist anymore. It's worth pointing out that the site isn't for profit. All the games are available for free. This is a community-led project where people find games that are hard to come by, either from an old computer or maybe a floppy disk, and essentially donate it to the website, much like you would donate something to a museum. But that to me raises a question, right? Like, when I think of a museum, I think of sculptures and artifacts and other cool things that are worth showing off. But a lot of the games on this website really suck. I mean, there are some good ones, sure, but for the most part, the best retro games still have an official home. If you want to play Super Mario World, which came out before The Simpsons Tetris, might I add, you can get a Nintendo Switch and play it on the SNES emulator. Therefore, it's not on a website like myabandonware.com. This site seems to host the games that the original publishers consider so out of date, irrelevant, and undesirable that they literally wouldn't give it to you if you paid them. It's to the point where, at least for the publishers that are still up and running, they don't even care that you can get their old games for free somewhere else. And we know what Nintendo is like. They really must not give a damn about Mario Teaches Typing. And so, if the original creators don't even care about their own old and forgotten games anymore, then why do we? Especially enough to voluntarily put all this time and effort into archiving the games and providing screenshots and descriptions and tips on how to get Marge to swing a vacuum cleaner at enemies. That's not Tetris anymore, that's just the regular Simpsons arcade game. You can tell because it looks like it might actually be kind of fun. Maybe we put all this effort into preserving things from our past like this, regardless of if they're particularly noteworthy or even deserving of preservation, because we have a hard time letting go. I used to make videos on Club Penguin, and about a year ago I made my final video about Club Penguin private servers. These were copycat sites of the original that were run entirely by fans, with the idea being to keep the spirit of the website alive after it officially shut down in 2017. Now, with these being fan run and there not being the usual checks and balances of a professional work environment, things quickly got scandalous, to the point where the police got involved due to criminal activity taking place. Yes, I'm still talking about Club Penguin. In my video, I advised people to just avoid private servers altogether. I didn't think it was worth the drama, and I didn't care which were the good ones or the bad ones. Just don't get involved. I think we can move on from Club Penguin now. It's been a few years. And yet, despite all that, I still, to this day, get tons of people messaging me saying, no, there are good ones, you should make a video on them. Or hey, there's this new one I found, you should check it out. And I couldn't for the life of me understand why people were so eager for me to keep making videos on a game from 2005 that at this point has been outpaced and outclassed by other 3 games in almost every single way, and which, may I remind you, shut down over 4 years ago. I mean, why couldn't people just let it go? And then I realized, I'm guilty of the exact same thing. Pretty much all I've talked about on my channel for the last 4 years is stuff from my childhood. Club Penguin, Neopets, Simpsons games, Flash games, The Tester. Hell, I even made a video on PC Play and Learn. Now that was me going way back. And I made these videos because these were the things that interested me the most and that I wanted to talk about. But it does make me wonder, do I just have an appreciation for the past? Or am I stuck in it? A phrase you'll often come across is something along the lines of, I miss the old, insert whatever musician, TV show, or even YouTuber here. And whenever I see that, I think, does that mean you want the old thing back? Or do you just miss the time in your life when that thing impacted you? Maybe when we find ourselves missing an old version of something, it's because that thing represents a feeling we got when we encountered it. Maybe a feeling we were only able to recognize in hindsight. And maybe that's what we want back. We just want that feeling, not necessarily whatever thing gave it to us. Especially because there's nothing to say that that thing could give us that same feeling again in the future. Because even if it remained exactly the same, you would have changed. It's similar to how no music can get me quite as hyped as the music I listened to when I was a kid. And that's not to say those songs were necessarily better than what's coming out now. You know, the High School Musical soundtrack wasn't exactly the epitome of musical expression, but those songs mean something to me that no other music can. It was just the right place at the right time. They made a High School Musical TV show almost 15 years after the original movie came out. In that time, I grew from the age of 7 to 22, aka too old to give a damn about high school drama. And yet Disney still saw it as a good idea to base a show on a property where the original audience is now significantly older than the show's target audience. And why? Because they knew we'd come back. I've watched the whole thing, and when I first saw the trailer for it, I was hyped as hell, which it turns out is the first step in getting anyone to buy into something. How do you get them excited about it? Well, if you base it on something you know already means a lot to them, it's much easier. You don't even need to show anything substantial. A logo could be enough. I think that's why we get this endless stream of sequels and remakes and remasters. We get these live service games and cinematic universes that are designed to never end. And while that's not to say these things can't themselves be quality, they are ultimately just ways of repackaging the same old stuff and selling it back to us. And for the most part, we want it. We want the old stuff because it was good, or at least we remember it that way. But the desire for familiarity can often stifle originality, and we can end up in this loop of trying to repeat the same experiences over and over again. You know, in that way, being too loyal to your past sort of betrays your future. I mean, if you never try anything you've never tried before, then the stuff you're reminiscing on 5 years from now will be the same stuff you're reminiscing on now. You'll have nothing new to feel nostalgic over. But also, maybe nostalgia's overrated. I mean, if you put so much emphasis on how you're gonna feel about something later, you might not allow yourself to actually appreciate the current moment for what it is. I think it's really tempting to chase the past because it feels like it's getting away from us. I mean, time moves ever forward and our memories can only do so much, so maybe the only way to avoid losing track of what's happened before is to keep a close eye on it. And maybe we consider the past easier to deal with because it feels set in stone. It's happened, we know the story, and as long as we retell it carefully, all of it, even the parts which don't seem worth remembering, it won't change. And that can feel a hell of a lot safer than the present, which changes in an instant, and the future, which, well, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. But surely putting so much energy into remembering robs us of the novelty of new experiences. I mean, if you're constantly trying to retrace and reimagine the past, what time is there to forge a new path? And that's why I think one of the coolest things about digital media of any kind is that as long as someone puts it somewhere where others can get it, it can last forever. And in a form truer to itself than anyone could ever recreate, including the original creator. I think that if you find yourself missing an old thing, regardless of the quality or value of that thing, you remembering it suggests it has meaning to you. And you should be able to find it, not just hope for a remake or a sequel or a spiritual successor. The original would be enough. And if out of the blue you have this vague memory of playing an old Tetris game that you could have sworn had this weird Bart Simpson looking figure in it, then you should be able to find that too. Maybe a website like myabandonware.com exists so we can feel better about moving on and leaving the sources of our most precious memories behind, knowing that someone is taking care of them.